are present here, respected dignitaries on the dais, Ms. Ranjini, Sri Vidya, and then Dr. Satish sir, dignitaries of the dais, and my dear gathering. Today we are all celebrating International Women's Day 2023. I'm super excited to be part of this particular program, and that too in the IISc, right? And first of all, I would like to congratulate the team for organizing such a grand event. And also, I am privileged and honored to be part of this great program. When Geeta ma'am has approached me, the very big question popped up in my mind that, why me? Which I already told Ranjini ma'am, like, why me? A lot of questions that will popped up in my mind. And with a lot of thought process, I was able to understand that it is because of my education. Yes, I did my PhD degree in feminism, and it's in English literature. Well, let me talk about English literature. So it started in 14th century. So when we see the history of English literature, so it dates back from 14th century. So from 14th century till 19th century, when we observe, there were no women writers at all. It was only men who used to write about women and their experiences and also feelings. And the very big question is, how a man writer can explain about motherhood when he has not experienced it at all? That's a big question. So 19th century, after 19th century, that too I would like to say that, later part of 19th century, women writers started talking about feminine characteristics, feminism, and also they started becoming voice for their individuality. So it took many centuries for us to come to the mainstream as writers. And then now we have many women writers talking about feminism, talking about the identity, talking about the self, and also the mental health, which is utmost necessary in today's India. Now, let me talk about feminism, because this is a very fancy word, always been misread, misunderstood, and misinterpreted. In our university, whenever they have to talk about me, they say that, the professor is very good, she teaches well, but feminist. So what exactly this particular term? I don't find that it is in a welcoming manner that they call me feminist. So why, if I ask them, why do you say so? Because it is not in a great height or a spirit. They say that you always been voice of girls, you always support and you talk for girls. Yes, I talk for girls. That doesn't mean that I am against men. Right? I'm not against men. So feminism is not hating men. It advocates the equality among the genders. And we have many waves of feminism, like first wave of feminism, second wave and third wave, and now we have fourth wave of feminism. We also been voice of transgenders. When it comes to transgenders, I always remember that when the term was given to them, earlier it was not transgenders, it was just third gender, and they denied it. They said that why it is third gender? If you are terming us in third, in the term saying that third gender, then who is first gender? Who is second gender? Men are called as first gender and women are called as second gender. So why is this biased ideas towards women? So society, it's a heterogeneous section, so everybody has equal rights here. It is not only women to always be in the suppression mode. Well, I was talking about my PhD degree. Coming back to this particular feminist movement, we all know it happened in 19th century in Western countries. Women started coming out of their four walls, marched towards freedom, and also to seek right to vote. But what happened in feminism movement in India? We didn't come on streets and we didn't ask for this particular right to vote. Because why it is very important, that talks about our existence in the country as citizen. You agree? But we didn't ask for it because when the Constitution was framed, the provisions were already given. So in that way, we all should be very thankful to the very great feminist of the soil, Dr. BR Ambedkar. Coming back to my thesis, so I worked on selected novels of Geeta Hariharan. Geeta Hariharan is a very famous contemporary writer who's been voice of women and her modern day challenges and limitations, especially at workplace. And she also talks about the identity crisis, what is she facing in today's India. She is a great author, a social activist, and also the core feminist. Why am I stressing on the word core? Because she is the first person to question ever in the history for the first time that Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act. So what is this act about? So this act it says that father is considered as natural guardian, but not mother. Mother can be considered as natural guardian only in the absence of father. So what kind of gender equality that it talks about? So that was questioned in the court of law, and then she won the case in Supreme Court against RBI. So this always fascinated me to know more about her novels and her writings. What exactly that she talks about? What exactly her mindful of thought and the clarity of thoughts that she has towards women and their empowerment. So that made me to take up her works and then do my work on PhD. I was talking about, today I'm very happy that we are all sharing this space, talking about women, feminism, feminist movement, identity of women as individuals. But who created this space? I think we all should be very thankful to the Women's Cell. Because of Women's Cell and other, for example, even Internal Grievance Cell, it is all interconnected. So how did this come to an existence? So you all know probably it is all because of Vishaka guidelines. So what is this Vishaka? I think most of you might be knowing about it. But let me take you all to the days bygone. So what exactly happened with Bhavri Devi's case? Bhavri Devi is a lady, a social worker, hails from Rajasthan. And her job is to check the social evils that happens in and around her locality and report that to the concerned authorities. So one day, she gets to know that there is a child marriage that was happening in her locality. So her job is to go and educate them and then stop that social evil. So she reports the same to the authorities as well. Authorities did intervene in the matter, but they failed. Marriage did take place. Because the marriage was conducted by the upper class community of the society in a hierarchical order. And what happened to this particular, probably you must be thinking, what was the age of that girl child? It was 1-year-old infant. And as an act of revenge from this upper community on this lady, started. So they started targeting this lady. They were very powerful and they boycotted this lady from the village, and the revenge of that particular act didn't stop there. To show how powerful they are, 5 men one day brutally attacked Bhavri Devi and her husband. And in the presence of her husband, they wanted to show the ultimate power of men, and all these 5 men raped her. So imagine what kind of mental trauma that Bhavri Devi went through. That bitter experience. She was very firm and she sought justice. When she went and approached the authorities were not in support or in favor of her. The case was also not being registered immediately. The FIR was not, registered, filed. But her act of being determined and also very strong with the notion, she went ahead. Her medical test was deliberately delayed by 57 hours. But she was firm. The battle continued. The trial court of Jaipur finally gave the verdict, to our surprise, dismissing the case. How? Let me quote the reasons for it. When the incidents happened, uncles and nephews were there together, so it is highly improbable to rape a woman together. The second point, they all belong to the upper caste in the social order, so they cannot rape a woman who belongs to the lower community because she is an untouchable. The third point, since the husband was there in the situation, he could have restrained it. And the fourth one, as we all know, lack of sufficient medical evidence. There, the NGO was intervened in this matter. They wrote letters to the Supreme Court and requested them to intervene in this matter and then seek justice. So finally, 2013, we got prevention and prosecution of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Now the question is, why prevention and prosecution of sexual harassment at workplace than a rape act? Because when the incidents happened, she was on her duty. She was discharging her roles and responsibility. So any organization for that matter, for women especially, if they are on duty, the safe and secure place ought to be provided by an employer. And that's the reason we all have today the Women's Cell and Internal Grievance Cell. And 2018, the revision of this particular act says that stresses on basic facilities that has to be provided for women, hygiene washrooms, separate room for lactating mothers so that they can feed babies. And also, if an organization is having more than 30 women employees, then there has to be a creche. So it is a big question now, how many organizations, whether it may be public or it's a private one, give this kind of facility for women? It's a big question. So I was talking about these things. So change is a social order that has to happen in the way that we look at women today. So in that case, that always takes me back to an article which I have read probably in my degree days. I still remember that was published in Deccan Herald, and the author is Shubha. When she talks about the role of parenting, how best that we can join our hands in creating a better society for women. And she narrates, she explains, saying that a role of a mother is more in this particular point. For example, we are not vocal about the sexual harassment that we have experienced in our past. I'm sure in this hall, every woman in one or the other way have been trained in this particular, being a victim. But we don't talk about it to our children because it is a taboo to be discussed. So that's the reason we don't talk about it. As a mother, if you say that this was the situation even I have experienced, this was the bitter experience that I have faced, then probably a young, tender mind, for example, 8 to 9 years old son can understand. You need not to preach them the do's and don'ts, but with the narration of the experience, probably they can understand how to treat women. So how to be a dignified person in the society. That is very important. So it is not about, we all celebrate a Women's Day. It is not about making us stronger, because according to G.D. Anderson says that feminism is not making women stronger. Women are already strong. It is only the way the world is perceiving that their strength. So on that note, I would say that women are so bold, courageous, if they have mindful of thoughts, clarity of vision, then it is not the qualities to be appreciated in the society. they look at in a very negative shade. But the same qualities in a man, are the qualities to be lauded. I think the word women, it is siloed in the term women doctor, women scientist, women astronaut. I have observed in some interviews wherein the journalists asked the celebrities that how do you balance between your professional life and your personal life? Only to the female celebrities. This question won't be asked for men. Because women, it is always entangled with kitchen, confined with storeroom, taking care and raising her children. But have they ever asked to a man, is that not their responsibility as well? Right? I think we all have reached to a level wherein we'll have to come out of this gender biased thoughts so that we can treat everyone equal in this society. And I was talking about the change, and if we observe, I think we have seen a lot of change as a faculty of University of Agricultural Sciences. Earlier, the representation of girls in the classroom were very less, but now we have a lot many, and also they are representing our university in the national level, maybe sports or culturals, and also they are tracking the UPSC exams, becoming bureaucrats. Why am I talking about this? Because the representation of women should become more. Today, especially in the power position, I must tell you, because today we are all, the representation of women is there, but it is a very nominal representation. With that representation, I don't think that we can bring some solid change in the society. So that is very important, and that has become the flagship programs of every government, irrespective of parties, both in central and state level. So I was talking about the participation of women in scientific forum also. Now we can find lot many women talking about being very vocal. And in that case, education and then empowerment is very important, right? So education should go to each and every level of the society, to the doorsteps of the rural India, and also empowerment in the sense like giving more power to an individual. So that happens. So I can if we are economically independent, that will always change our socio-economic conditions in the society. So we are talking about being independent. We are becoming independent socially, economically, but a very basic question is, what about emotionally? Are we becoming independent emotionally? No. I have worked on these issues. So we always see, whenever I have a chat with all working women and a lot many young minds, girls, right? They always carry some baggage and of problems. They always think about why did this happen rather than thinking about the solution. The anxiety, depression, these are the terms that I often hear. And that's the reason probably Matt was rightly talking about mental health. That is very, very important. To be strong, it is not only physically, but also mentally. And it is vice versa as well. We all are in this particular society. We are all here to live our lives. And in that way, taking care of ourselves and our health is utmost needed of this particular hour. So, we were in that way, psychologists always encourage these writers to produce more literature in a feministic approach, because that they use in the treatment, the therapy called as bibliotherapy. What does it mean? For example, a rape victim cannot talk about what exactly happened, cannot recall the bitter experience and then open up with a counselor. So looking at the entire scenario, they do prescribe few literature that may make them very strong or calm down and find themselves in the characters and understand the situation better and then get back to the life in a normalcy. So yes, we all have limitations, but how best that we are growing in that kind of limitations matters a lot. So it is a race. We are all in the race. we fall and then we run. So in that sense, I think it is very important for all of us to be positive towards life and then achieve. I do understand there are a lot many gender discrimination that is still very much existing in the present society. Let us not get away from the reality of the society, but still how best that we are achieving is very important. But what happens, women are very generous, kind and very soft in nature. We become very weak in the tough situation. I would tell everybody that to be stubborn no matter what. And yes, let's move in the path of achievement. So when I went and I told our Vice Chancellor, sir, University of Agricultural Sciences, GKVK Bangalore, Dr. S.V. Suresh, sir, I don't know, I have not achieved much, but still this great opportunity has come from the great institution, Indian Institute of Science. He said, to be an achiever, you need not to become Marie Curie. If you start thinking in that perspective, that is enough that you are an achiever. So on that note, I would like to read a poem of mine, and it is left to your perception to understand it in a better mode. We fall, we run, we fall, we run, escaping from the torment sun, heat upon glare, yet run, hoping to find one, dignity found in none. Why is this run when there is no fun? One after one, patience totally gone. Can't recall days bygone, still one has to run. Interrogation and inspection by everyone when tired tongue. Run doesn't fetch butter and bun, nothing comes out in return. Compliments by someone makes happy, sometimes stunned. Spun, consisting gun. Yes, we are the ones still on run. Thank you very much, and let us all march towards victory than being victims. Happy International Women's Day. Ellarigu Mahila Dinacharane Shubhashayಗಳು. Thank you.